Welcome to today's episode of Cars and Beer.
Today we're going to have a discussion about the Supra Mark V engine teardown performed by Stephan Papadakis,
as well as the potential implications of the Corvette C8 in the automotive industry. This and more in today's episode of Cars and Beer.
Cheers. So Eddie, what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking a peanut butter milk stout from Belching Beaver Brewery. Good stuff.
Awesome. And I drank 3 or 4 of those earlier, so if my face is rosy red, that's probably why. I've moved on to the Fremont Dark Star Imperial Oatmeal Stout. This guy is just a little strong at 8 point. See, I can't even speak correctly. 8.0% alcohol by volume, and it tastes every bit as good.
It looks delicious. I will probably have one of those next. This is my last one of the peanut butter milk stouts. This to me was a replacement for the, what was it, Mud Mountain Milk Stout.
Mud Mountain Milk Stout,
which
by
was
the Puyallup River Brewery.
Yes, a local brewery.
May they rest in peace.
I was going to get to that.
They are no more.
For the jugular there,
Kinda
like literally
sad.
and figuratively.
I just miss going to the store and getting a 22 ounce of those bad boys.
I still have one. I don't know if it's expired, but I'm going to keep it for as long as I can.
We should show the people.
Our producer's about to get it. I want to show you this because this was my absolute favorite milk stout, and I am very sad that the company went belly up. So kind of a shout out to the ghost of Puyallup River Brewery Company. You served me well for many years, and unfortunately, our paths will never cross again.
Shall we give the brewery a moment of silence?
We should. Let me show the bottle first.
Ooh.
Oh man, look at this.
Thank you. That.
Look at this. This is a relic now because they're not making it anymore.
You can't buy it anymore.
No. So I'm really sad. Does this have an expiration date? Beer has expiration
I think
dates,
it
right?
expires tonight.
Well, here's the thing. I promised my father-in-law that I would drink this one with him at some point, so I can't open it. But trust me, the thought crossed my mind. But let's do a quick moment of silence for Puyallup River Brewery Company.
Yeah. This is serious. F***ing serious.
Cheers.
The Supra. Do you want to talk about the C8 or the teardown? What do you want to start with?
Let's talk about the teardown. I'm curious to see, because you showed me that video. I hadn't seen it before.
Okay.
You know how I feel about the 2020 Supra?
Yep.
More or less.
You don't really like it?
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I think I just did.
I'm not a huge fan, but I did watch the video. So since you are a little bit more familiar with the content of the video, I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Okay.
And maybe I'll share my thoughts.
So I watched the Stephan Papadakis video, and as Eddie was just saying, I got him to watch it for the first time today. There's a few takeaways from that video, and specifically the engine, and what I see as being potential shortcomings, and what I see as being definite positives. I'm going to start with the shortcomings. So one of the things I absolutely do not like about an engine in any way, shape, or form is it has a timing chain in the rear of the block. So any kind of service that you need to do on that, like replacing actually the timing chain or potentially the tensioner, that's an engine out service. You know, that's going to be a pain in the ass. A traditional engine, normally those timing chains are right in the front. And all you have to do is typically remove a radiator and, a couple of things, maybe the bumper if it's an Audi. I know I had to do that before. But now you have to take the engine out? I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. So there's that. The other thing is the integrated intercooler inside the intake manifold. And that looks like it's not serviceable either.
That's a big one. I mean, I'll say something about that.
Yeah.
It's the serviceability is not what worries me as much as the difficulty for aftermarket options. That's what worries me.
Fair enough. So with that said, I'm going to elaborate. Basically, if you want to switch over to like a front mount intercooler. Now granted, I will say this. The intercooler is an air to water cooler. So at least they went high end on that. The problem I have with it is, according to Stephan Papadakis, I'll just call him Steph, is it's all sandwiched together, and it doesn't look like you can actually take the intake manifold apart. I'm sure people will probably come up with a way to do that, but if you want to change that over to a front mount, you're going to have to get a custom-made intake manifold. Then you're going to have to get all new piping and all that stuff. That's typical stuff, but I don't particularly care for having the intercooler integrated inside the intake manifold. And the third thing that I don't like about the engine either is that it essentially has a built-in exhaust manifold inside the cylinder head. That to me just, I think it's going to limit potential of the engine, possibly. I mean, if you look at it from the point of view where you typically have, one exhaust port for every single cylinder, you now would have to have those two exhaust ports be equal in size to effectively flow that air from 6 down into 2. And then from there, it's to turbo, which is bolted right up to those 2 ports. So the exhaust manifold in this case is actually part of the turbo housing itself. It's not a separate exhaust manifold or header. So just something that I see as potential cons with this engine in the future. Oh, there was one other thing that just kind of came to mind. This is not in my notes. It's direct injection. That's great for making power. That's great for fuel economy. However, as we've seen with Fords, Toyotas, and other makes out there, if you don't also have traditional multi-port injection where you're actually spraying the fuel over the intake valves, you're going to get sludge. This engine will sludge up unless BMW or Toyota or whoever actually came up with a way to clean off those valves, and I'm betting they didn't. So start looking for sludge in the next 20, 30,000 miles on these engines, especially with the stop-start cycle.
Well, and you've got a valve train in this engine that's a lot more complex than regular inline sixes. So
yeah.
The cleanup process for the valve train, or for the valves themselves, is going to be exponentially more difficult than even the traditional direct injection engine. So yeah, it's definitely, you hit a lot of the same marks. I'll say though, being devil's advocate, I did like one thing that I saw. Well, not one thing, but a couple of things, but they all related to the actual bottom end. And the first one is a closed deck design, and that's
awesome.
Pretty awesome.
Awesome.
Solid block. And the second one is that crank is amazing. I saw the teardown video, and they went like pretty above and beyond. He was referring to it very much as a racing crank, and I think the bottom end of that engine is going to be the basically what's going to give it the potential for 1,000+ horsepower in modified applications.
I couldn't agree more. I see the bottom end of that engine being extremely stout. So as he already touched on, it's closed deck, which is nice. Excuse me, which is really nice, especially considering it's an aluminum block and not cast iron anymore. The other two pieces, which are pretty sweet, are the girdle with an integrated windage tray. So the girdle actually bolts onto every single main cap that attaches to the block, right, for the crank. So that just adds all that additional layer of rigidity. So when you start getting high pressures, high horsepower, high RPM, all of that is going to come into play, and it's going to prevent that from, essentially elongating, which is typically what causes a bearing to get spun, because it gets, it expands too much. It gets too much movement inside, and then it doesn't have enough oil for the gap, and then burn, baby, burn.
But so I'll say I went from not being a humongous fan of the 2020 Mark V Supra to beginning to appreciate a little bit more of its technology, and it's using a double vanus design. A lot of the engine design is got the BMW DNA in it, and whether or not it's going to be reliable, that's yet to be seen.
Yeah.
But it will definitely be efficient in power making. So I'm excited to see what Stephan, I can't pronounce his last name.
Stephan Papadakis.
Stephan Papadakis. I'm excited to see what him and his team are going to be doing with that engine, and see how far they can take it. But you can make any engine push, 30, 40, 50, 100% more horsepower than stock. for short periods of time. You know, the real test is how reliable is this engine going to be pushing 1,000 horsepower. The 2JZ is legendary for it being able to achieve those horsepower levels reliably. And that's, I think, what's going to answer all the questions whether or not this is a proper replacement for the Mark IV Supra.
So, yeah, and just to kind of elaborate on that, there's not, I don't think, I could be wrong, and if anybody wants to correct me in the comments, please do. I don't think there's actually a lot of 1,000 plus stock bottom end Supras out there. There's going to be something done to them, whether it be rods, pistons. I think the crank itself can hold up pretty well. What you do see a myriad of are 600-700 horsepower stock bottom end Supras. And I think, honestly, this B58 engine that's in the new Mark V can handle every bit of that. I think it'll do 600-700 horsepower just fine on the bottom end. From what I saw, the crank's not going to be a problem. If anything's going to be a problem in this engine, on the bottom end, I'm going to say it's going to be the pistons. I think they're a cast piston, probably a hyper-eutectic with a coating on the side skirts, just for friction reduction.
Yep.
But overall, it looks stout, and I'm actually excited to see what it does.
I think
I'm not a hater. I do like it. You hate it.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
The Supra.
Well, I mean, I got to poke fun at it occasionally. I wasn't a fan of it when it was finally revealed. I thought that it could have probably been used for a different platform or essentially carry a different name badge.
Like Celica?
I think maybe a Celica replacement or even the new Toyota 86. I mean, it's it might be a little overkill for a Toyota 86 platform. You're definitely not going to get a $25,000 car with that inline six engine in it.
Yeah.
It's just not, from an accounting perspective, it's just not possible. But definitely the car could have carried a different name badge, use the same chassis, but maybe put a 2-liter or 2.5 turbo instead of the inline six, and then try and build what the concept was into a real car in the $65,000-$70,000 range, maybe even $80,000. The Mark IV Supra towards the tail end of its production was very expensive, and if you
it was 60.
It was about 55, 60 grand, I think. And you turn that into today's dollar, money, and it was.
It had to be pushing 80 grand.
Yeah, 80 grand, 90 grand.
Because that was what discontinued in '99.
Here in the U.S., I think it was 98, 97. I don't know. Maybe it was 98.
Oh, I thought it was later than that. I was saying 98 or 9.
Okay,
okay, that's fair.
There were so many Japanese cars in the era that were beginning to fall off the U.S. market. Yeah. The 3000 GT VR4, the 300ZX twin turbo. So, when we saw them getting into the late 90s, they were all pushing the 50,000 plus range, which today would have been $70,000, $80,000. So, anyways, the point is that they could have actually built something that could have been sold in that price range and competed with the likes of the 911, Carrera S, or, even though it's considered a supercar, but it would have been comparable to the newer NSX in terms of performance and just the general styling and things like that.
So with that said, do you think Toyota will release something to compete with the NSX? Do you think they'll come out with $150,000 car?
When they do, it seems like they try to use the Lexus brand for it. And it's a little disappointing to me because the Supra should have been it. And here's the thing. They should have done the same thing that and we'll elaborate on this a little bit later on, but they should have used the same formula that Chevy did with the Corvette C8, which is let's build a flagship car, but keep it attainable. And the Supra, even at $80,000, I still consider that attainable because, if you're somebody who right now could afford a $60,000 car and not quite an $80,000, $80,000 could be 2 years away, right? Because once you set that as a goal, then, you work all the angles to try and figure it out. It could have been a flagship car that would have competed with those cars. Instead, they decided to release it as a mid-level platform, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, they really built it, unlike the Mark IV, which was more of a grand touring sports coupe, if you will.
It was a little on the floaty, fatty side.
Fat, yeah, heavy. Big Bertha, if you will. The latest, the Mark V is...
grandmother's name, Bertha.
Really? Mm-hmm. Was she big?
No. Well, I mean, a little big.
Okay. Anyway, the Mark V, is a pure sports car.
It is. I will agree with that.
And I do like what Toyota has done with their side of the platform versus what BMW has done. You know, they've obviously put in like fake vents, but they're all removable, so you can actually create more airflow. The thing I don't understand, and maybe there's a good reason for it, is why didn't they just create those as actual vents to begin with? Right. Do you think it had to do with maybe airflow and aerodynamics? Maybe it would actually suffer a little bit more by doing that?
Maybe when they were doing
fuel economy targets?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I think when they were doing testing and they wanted to keep it at a certain level for EPA testing and whatever the parameters were, when they had the open vents, it generated enough drag, possibly, having that air push into the actual chassis instead of flowing around it. And maybe they were losing 2 mpgs, 3 mpgs, maybe enough for them to decide, let's not do that. Because like you said, they're removable, so what's the point of not making them open vents from the beginning?
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, I think it was kind of a neat idea from them, at least opening it up for aftermarket companies and individuals who want to personalize their vehicle. It does make me want to make aftermarket parts for it, though, because people will buy stuff.
Remley Racing.
Yeah.
You can revive that brand.
Right on.
With your one product at one time, about 20 years ago.
Okay, so you kind of had a little bit of a segue. Let's start talking about your revered Corvette.
All right. Well, it's been in the news everywhere since the reveal, and a lot of the conversations have been around the pricing scheme. That was extremely aggressive. I mean, I'm extremely surprised because when I was watching the reveal, I remember waiting for them to finally say what the starting price was, and I think everybody was waiting for that. But when they were talking about the performance specs of the vehicle and showing a lot of the interior features and the options for seats and whatnot, I actually started getting nervous because I was like, man, this car, it's got to be like up there in the $80,000, $90,000 range. It just doesn't make sense financially for them to be selling it anywhere below that. But I said that if they started it at $70,000, they had a winner. That's actually what I said.
Yep.
And they made the announcement starting below 60. Even if it's $59,999, it is still the bargain of the automotive industry right now when it comes to performance vehicles. And what the C8 represents right now, it's almost like an FU to the supercar market,
fouled up,
fed up, forced
fun university,
fudge unicorn. So
no unicorn talk.
Well,
unless you're talking about the Corvette.
I am. I think I'm still on topic.
Okay.
So, wow, I just lost my train of thought.
So I'm going to echo him, and honestly, I think the C8 is going to be an incredible car. I just bought a truck last year, so I'm not in the market, but if I didn't buy a truck, I would probably be looking at the C8 to put outside my garage because it's full of crap. But no, I mean, I think it's going to be incredible. I'm a little disappointed there is no manual, but that's where we are today in the automotive world. Is manuals are going the way of the dodo. It's sad for people like me and Eddie here. We like our manual cars. And should we have a moment of silence for the manual transmission car?
Let's have a moment of silence.
This is f***ing serious.
We're going to have to get that damn bleep sound now.
No, we'll bleep it.
All right.
So anyway, yeah, it looks like it'll be a fun car. I can't wait to actually go physically touch one, look at it, sit in it, maybe test drive one, depending on if the salesman's going to be nice.
Speaking of sitting on it, or in it,
I'm not going to sit on it.
It's a plastic car. Don't sit on it, please. The third option for the seats, I can't remember what they call it, maybe like GT, Grand Touring seats or whatever. I know that there's the base, there's a middle, and then there's like a third option. And the third option is amazing. Like the design of it, the what do you call that bottom part here by the thighs? It's actually like 2 divided sections like this. I don't know. Have you seen it?
I don't know. I was going to say lumbar bolster, but that's all on the back.
No,
it's just like, is it like the BMW, so they have like a leg extension?
Well, kind of, sort of. It's hard to explain, but you could probably just Google a picture here in a little bit. And it just looks amazing. It looks like something that could be in a $250,000 exotic of some sort. So they put a lot of thought into the styling of it, and I don't think so. Styling, obviously, it's all about subjective views a lot of times.
I think it's a pretty car.
Here's the thing, though. Pretty aside, or pretty or ugly, whatever, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Styling also has an element of architecture and engineering and thought behind it, right? The function part. And a lot of times when they don't want to give themselves any financial restrictions on implementing something a certain way, they do it the right way 100% in every single angle. The looks, the function, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's what they achieved with the interior of the car. And that seat specifically, or like the upgraded seats, like I said, if they would have been in a $250,000 Ferrari, then they would have looked right at home. Let alone in a $58,000, $59,000.
I'm gonna have to look for these seats.
Well, actually, if you upgrade to the seats, then it's gonna bring the price up above 60.
I need to look at these seats.
Let me Google it right now because I want you to see this. They showed the three options when they were doing the reveal, and I remember just thinking how amazing they looked. I don't know what the pricing is on them. You sent me the other day the pricing breakdown for a couple of the options. I don't know if the seats were in that breakdown, but I can only imagine they're probably a couple of grand.
So that reminds me. So one of the key things on this is, I think it's going to be like $59,995. That includes delivery. So GM is actually trying really hard to keep the base price of this Corvette below $60,000. So you could literally go into a Chevy dealership. You'd probably have to special order one because I'm pretty sure they're not going to order any Corvettes for the lot that are going to be completely base model, right? They're always going to add stuff to it. But what I remember seeing was, I think the performance package, which most people are probably going to opt for, was $5,000. The performance exhaust, which is what needs to be on there for that 495 horsepower figure that everybody talks about. Otherwise, I think it's 485 or 490. So you pick up 5 or 10 horsepower by having the performance exhaust. The performance exhaust by itself is $1,895 or something like that. And then you'll want the limited slip. I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't want a limited slip on this level of a car. That, I think, was another $1,900 or $2,000. So those two items, the performance exhaust and the limited slip, are already going to put you at about $3,800, $4,000, right? Whereas the performance package is $5,000. It includes those two items, and then I think it's got some aero and maybe, I don't remember exactly what it was, so I apologize. Don't quote me on this, but I think it also had some suspension work done as well as part of the performance pack. So really, if you want to get a really high performing Corvette, you're looking at about 65 grand. That's not terrible for a mid-engine car that's going to compete with and most likely beat your entry-level McLarens, right?
Yep.
I do not see those competing with it. I don't. The 720 is going to annihilate the Corvette, base Corvette. For the Corvette to compete with the McLaren 720, you're going to need to wait for the Z06. Mm-hmm. Then I think we're going to see some serious upsets in the supercar world, and I think it's going to be cool. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of GM, never have been, but I love this new Corvette. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I've never. So we'll probably just show you guys a picture. In post, but this is the third seat option, and this is what I'm talking about here.
Okay.
So it's a lot of design. It's like both the form and function, and I mean, if you look at the design of the seats, I mean, that could be in an exotic of any kind.
Yeah,
it's like,
you know what it looks like to me is it looks like something that you would actually see like in a Lamborghini, in some sort of an Italian mark. I mean, it's definitely something that you wouldn't see in your typical Corvette. And that's the other thing that I think is great that GM finally did, was they stepped away from the Cavalier parts. Cavalier. So they actually have their own unique steering wheel now. They have their own unique interior parts in there. So it just feels more upscaled, and they've gone away from their Econobox part bin for the Corvette.
Yeah, the new Corvette. So that's another thing that you brought up a good point. So if you look at the interior of the new Corvette, the C8 generation Corvette, everything about it is specific to the car. you're not sharing, buttons or dials with other vehicles. Like the C5 and even the C6 generation Corvettes, you could look inside and you could find little bits and pieces that got borrowed from other vehicles in the GM lineup.
Yeah.
Especially the C5.
Yeah, I mean, they literally shared the steering wheel with the Cavalier.
Steering wheels. I mean, you had actual buttons and things in the dash. So, and the materials as well. I mean, it was very plasticky and vinyl-y.
Yeah.
So this car, you can tell that they decided, you know what, let's build a new car. I mean, this could very well be a completely different brand of vehicle, not just a GM subsidiary. So I'm really excited. Like him, I've never been a huge fan of GM as a whole, and I mean, this might clue you in. I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to cars. I am. I own several different types of car hats, but GM, I don't own one yet. It is very possible in the next 2 to 3 years I might actually be sporting a vet hat, and that's because
you need a leather jacket
and a jacket and
leather
jacket. Okay.
With
aren't they supposed to come with it?
Black and white checkered flags.
Maybe the ZR1 will come with it in the trunk or something.
Maybe.
But another thing that you brought up a few moments ago was the fact that we'll see the 720S level performance probably in the Z06, and then of course we'll have a ZR1 dropped at some point. Definitely not something that I think would be extremely attainable for most, but it will continue cementing that image that Corvette is actually going after the big boys, and I think this time every single generation of Corvette has always been there, almost there, and respectable. I mean, the Z06 has always been a really good car. It's been about extreme performance, not necessarily in like straight line, but more handling package and things like that. I think this time they actually got to the point where they're potentially surpassing a lot of the supercar offerings. So we're almost hitting like a point where it'll be physically impossible to go any faster because
until they come up with new tire compounds.
I mean,
we're starting to. We've already gotten to that point, right, where engine torque exceeds what a tire can grip. Yes. So eventually we're going to exceed that. So Michelin, Bridgestone, I'm looking at you guys. Goodyear. I'm looking at you guys to make tires with a higher coefficient of drag or friction coefficient.
They'll probably be like super soft and wear out in like 5,000 miles or something, but they'll be needed.
It'll just be made with unobtainium. Yeah. But I was going to go somewhere with this. So to me, right now, the 2020 Supra, what we are witnessing is the modern day shakeup of the exotic car arena, similarly to what Honda did with the NSX when they came out with that car. So the key difference here is when Honda did it, they came out with an affordable, everyday supercar that was reliable, right? And now GM's coming out with an everyday, affordable supercar that's competing with the likes of Ferrari and Lamborghini. Notice I didn't say reliable only because it hasn't proven itself. Did I say Supra? I apologize. I meant Corvette. GM coming out with a new Corvette C8.
You said Corvette the second time. You said Supra at first because I was thinking maybe you were shifting gears back to the.
So whatever I said, I really meant Corvette. Cheers.
Cheers.
So the Corvette is going to shake up the supercar world. That's my prediction, and I apologize, I smacked my microphone. But I really think it's going to make a big difference in what we see. Maybe, not likely, but maybe we'll see the prices of Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens come down a little bit out of the stratosphere.
I think what's going to happen is this. They will do what BMW did in the 80s when they came out with the 3 Series. Wait, it was actually technically in the 70s when they came out with what was it, 2002 or something?
2002, yeah.
Yeah. So essentially what they did was, it wasn't that they necessarily brought down the prices of these existing lineups for manufacturers in Germany.
They made everybody else get better.
They actually they created a new, what is it called, a new class, right?
Okay.
So then the manufacturers were like, oh, well, in order for us to compete, we have to create something that competes with it in that lower class, lower in the sense of pricing. And I think that's what's happening right now with the C8. The C8 is going to force the likes of McLaren and, I'm not going to say Porsche because Porsche already has the Cayman platform, the 718, and the, They're both 718. The Boxster and the Cayman, right? They don't have different numbers anymore.
They're based off the 718.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, it is a 718 and the Boxster.
Yep.
Or maybe it's a 718 Spider. I don't know. Anyway.
So, but regardless, they already have an offering in a price range that can get people into the Porsche brand. McLaren doesn't. Ferrari definitely does not, but I don't think Ferrari cares.
They don't. They're elitists.
They are. They do their own thing, and they don't have to care. That's the thing.
No.
They don't have to care.
Oh, you want to buy this new car? Show us that you bought 2 other new ones first.
But I'll say who will care and who will actually do something.
McLaren.
Well, McLaren for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's the main target. But the second one is Lamborghini, because when they introduced the Gallardo back in the day, that was what they were trying to do. They were trying to create a Lamborghini that was a little bit more attainable. It's still kind of pricey, but it was more attainable. And if anybody has the ability to actually produce a car that's closer to the $100,000 range, would be Lamborghini, because they have the platforms to leverage from Audi. So
Vag.
from Badge Group, or that's redundant. That's Badge Group would be
Volkswagen
Audi
Audi
Group. Because I said Badge Group.
That'd be VAG.
VAG.
It's Vag.
So, well, all of this innuendos aside, they have platforms that they can actually leverage from. Stop touching my beer.
Vag.
That's not Badge. That's
What is
Beaver.
it? It's belching.
Belching Beaver.
Also
Are we gonna have to bleep all this?
No.
Is it
Continue.
acceptable?
It's acceptable.
All right.
I didn't say anything dirty.
It was definitely implied, but very serious discussion. Tell them this is serious.
This is f***ing serious, all right, people?
So, yeah, I think this is a good thing. It's a good thing for the industry.
I agree.
I might actually be able to afford a supercar at some point in the next 10 years. Who knows?
Cool, and I'll drive it.
Maybe. We'll see.
I'll video me driving it.
You can use Adobe After Effects and just put yourself inside the car.
All right. Well, I think this concludes our episode of Cars and Beer.
It does. I'm almost out of beer.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Please remember to hit like and subscribe.
and that little bell.
The notification bell. You got it. Ding.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, cheers.
Cheers.
Until next time. Thank you.